Okay, it's still morning, so very good morning to you all, and welcome back to online session, and also I want to warmly welcome you, to the second semester of your MA in English program at MTS Open University. So, I'm truly happy to see you here again, and I hope your first semester examination went quite well. So you have written quite well. Everyone has passed except Hayu because he didn't sit for one exam. That's why he will get back paper. Otherwise, everyone has done quite well. So now, today we shall move on to the second semester courses. Right. So we have again, you'll be having five courses. I will show you in later in the slides. And today I shall begin with first paper, that is first course, that is ENM 6211, titled as Fundamentals of Linguistics and ELT. Okay, so ELT is what? English language teaching. I will introduce you to all these things today. So now, before that, let's before we dive deeper into fundamentals of linguistics and ELT, let's look into today's lecture's content. So today we shall cover about course structure of second semester MA in English, right? And then course overview of first paper, that is ENM 6211, and backgrounds of block 1, that is block 1 of ENM 6211, that is there are total 5 units, and then we shall talk about course objectives and outcomes, there's learning goals, and then we shall do uh, in-depth discussions of unit 1 to 5 of block 1 ENM 6211, and then I shall give you some questions, 2 to 3 questions, and to check your progress, how far you have understood about the topics. Okay, and then finally we shall conclude the lecture, and then I shall introduce you to uh, and also introduce you to next lecture's topic. Okay, now let's move on to the next slides. So this is the course structure of second semester in English. So there are 5 papers, right? 5 courses, and again, just like in first semester, first paper deals with language. There is fundamentals of linguistics and ELT, and then second paper you have Shakespeare, all about drama, and then third paper you have about criticism and theory. That is literary criticism and theory, and next we have British poetry 2. In first semester, you have studied British poetry 1, right? So in second semester, you will be studying British poetry 2. And then next you have the last paper is British prose. Right? Similarly, just like British poetry 2, this is also a continuation of, first semester British poetry 1. Okay. So they all carry 4 credits. Okay. So now, it's all about, course structure. Now let's move into course overview of ENM 6211, fundamentals of linguistics and ELT. So there are four blocks. There are 4 blocks. Uh, the first 2 blocks deals with linguistics, and the last 2 blocks deals with ELT. What is ELT here? First, in the first block, you'll see definition and scope of our modern linguistics, and in block 2, we shall discuss about theories and linguistics. Theories of linguistics, and in block 3, we shall discuss about English language teaching, synonym as sorry, yeah, not synonym as you know, uh, the ELT, right? ELT in Indian context. Not, we're not talking about like British English or something like that, American English, but from Indian context. What is ELT? We shall be discussing about that. And then book 4, we shall also discuss about the nature and the needs and objectives of English language teaching. So this course will introduce you to the study of language, and also explain or show you how linguistics knowledge contributes to English language teaching. Okay, so this is all about this overview of ENM 6211. Now let's move into breakdown of today's lecture. That is Block 1, definition and scope of modern linguistics. As you can see here, there are 5 units, right? So I shall be explaining each unit, okay, in a very simple way so that you can easily understand what I discuss. Okay, our like see linguistics as a scientific study of language, right? So we shall first discuss what exactly is the why here scientific study. This thing we shall discuss. And in unit 2, we shall discuss about theoretical and applied linguistics. And then unit 3, we shall discuss about levels of linguistics analysis. And in unit 4, we shall discuss about linguistics and language teaching. And finally, we shall discuss about branches of linguistics. Okay, now these are the learning goals. Okay, these are the learning goals. Learning goals is there is course objectives and expected outcomes. So there are 4 course objectives for this lecture, for this block. So the first one is to understand linguistics as a scientific study of language. And second, to examine the scope and measure concepts of modern linguistics. And third, to understand the relationship between linguistics and language teaching. And fourth, to introduce you to the measure branches and levels of linguistics analysis. And as for expected outcomes, you'll be able to explain the scientific nature of linguistics and also distinguish the theoretical and applied linguistics. And you'll also be able to identify measure levels of linguistics and analysis. And and also you'll understand, you'll be able to understand, the importance of linguistics in language teaching. Okay. So these are the linguistics goal. There is course objectives and course outcome. Now let's move on to unit 1. Why Taiwan is not joining? Taiwan. I can see only Momita and Kesar are joining. Taiwan is not joining. Okay. So now in unit 1, as I said already, the title is Linguistics as a Scientific Study of Language. Right? So this is where we begin to understand, linguistics, what linguistics actually is. So let me start with a simple and direct definition, right? So linguistics is a systematic and scientific study of language. Every word in the in this definition matters. I'm not simply saying that the 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 chain of knots now here, right? Uh, each words, each phrase is very important here. So if when we say it is systematic, we mean that it follows a method, right? Whenever you said about systematic, there must be some kind of method, right? So something like that. So linguists do not study, randomly or casually. When they study a language, they don't usually like randomly study casually. Chinese like that, or Bengali language studies. No, not like that. It should be systematic. Okay, so they observe language carefully. They classify what they find, and and then they analyze. They analyze it step by step. So when we say it is scientific, we mean that linguistics uses same kind of objective, evidence-based, approach that we find in natural sciences. Okay, that's why it is scientific and also systematic because it follows method. Don't forget, systematic. Why systematic? Because it follows method. Okay, and why it is scientific? Because it follows same objective and evidence-based approach, just like we find in natural sciences. Okay. That's a minute, okay. Done. Uh, now, uh, now, what exactly do linguists study? Who are linguists? A person who deals with language or linguistics is called linguist. And now, as a student, you are linguister. A student of linguistics are called linguister. Okay, a person who deals with linguistics or the study of language is known as what? Linguist. Okay, now what exactly do linguister and linguist study? They study several aspects of what? Language. Not languages. You cannot study two, three, five, seven languages at the same time. When you study some aspects of language, you have to focus specifically. And the most you can do two languages at the same time, two or three or something like that for maximum. Okay. So first they study speech sounds. Okay, like vowels, consonant, and all these things. How sounds are produced, how they are organized, okay, and how they create meaning, right? So second they study word formation. I have already taught this thing in the first semester, right? How words are built from smaller units and how new words are created. And third, uh, they study sentence structure. What do they study in sentence structure? How words are arranged to form grammatically, correct sentences. See, when I said linguistics is a systematic study of language, I told you each word, each phrase has meaning, right? They matters. Just like that. Unnecessarily, yes, words are not arranged. Okay, it should make sense. Otherwise, it cannot become sentence. If it doesn't make sense, it cannot become sentence. As simple as ABC, right? So fourth, they study meaning and interpretation. What words, phrases, and sentences mean, and how context affects the meaning. And fifth, they study language use in society and how language functions in social interactions, okay, in different communities and across different situations. All right. So now, think about this for a moment. Language is something that every human, being uses in every single day. Yet most people have never stopped to think about how it works. A linguist is someone who asks this question seriously and answers them with what? Evidence and method. Remember, evidence and method. Systematic method. Evidence, what? Scientific, right? When you speak, you are unconsciously, following complex rules of grammar, sound, and meaning. Linguistics, makes those unconscious rules visible and understandable. Okay, so language is studied, scientifically through what? Uh, three fundamental steps, mainly. Okay, like observations, where linguists gather data from the real language use, and classification next. That is where they group or categorize what they observed, and analyze an analysis where they draw conclusions and develop theories. So this method is what separates linguistics from casual or um, in impressionistic talk about language. So as students of uh, English. So learning to think about language scientifically and systematically, as I have already said in the definition, is one of the most valuable skills you will develop in this course, or not only in this course, in your practical life even. Okay, so it's quite important. So this is all about Unit One. This that is not unit. There's not anything of Unit One. So the first part of the Unit One. Let's move on to the second part of the Unit One. Did Thaipong join or no? Okay. So now we have nature and scope of linguistics. Now let us look more closely at the nature and scopes. In other words, what kind of questions linguists asked and what areas it covers. Linguistics investigates four broad areas. First, it investigates how languages are structured. Every language, whether it is English, Hindi, Bengali, Kokrom, or any other language, has its own internal structure, right? So linguistics tries to describe and explain these structures. So second, uh, you can see here, linguistics investigates how language change over time. So languages are not, fixed or like frozen, right? They are constantly evolving. So new words enter the language. Old words change their meaning. Is it not? So grammar rules shift gradually, right? So this study of language change over time is called historical or diachronic linguistics. Okay. So third, linguistics it investigates how humans acquire language. This is fascinating inquiry. Why? So how does let me tell you the question. How does a child go from making random sounds as a baby to speaking full sentences, right? By the age of 3 or 4. Is it not? So what is the process of language acquisition? Is language learned or is it something we are biologically pre-equipped for? These question are also a question. I mean, these are the questions that linguists they take it very seriously. Okay, so fourth, linguistics also investigates how language functions in communication. So communication is the primary purpose of language, and linguistics studies how language achieves this purpose in conversations, in writing, in formal and in informal contexts. Okay, so now to make this even clearer, yeah, you can see this slide gives us a very I say can you see here this example, very helpful example here. So take this a sentence like children are playing in the park. A linguist might analyze the sentence at multiple levels simultaneously at the levels of sound, see at the level of sound, ch, e, l, the, something like that, children, right? At the level of, what? Sounds of each words are produced and perceived, right? At the level of word structure, they would observe that words like children and playing have specific internal structures, right? Child, children, something like that, right? Like play, there is like word structure. And at the level of sentence structure, they would identify the subject, verb, and other grammatical elements. Right? Are, play, verb, something like that. Okay. And at the level of context, at the level of meaning, uh, I mean, at the level of first, at the level of meaning, then only context. At the level of meaning, they would ask what this sentence, tells about the word, right? There is semantics in linguistics, we call it. And at the level of context, that is pragmatics, they would ask who is saying this, to whom, and why. So together, these labels gives us a complete linguistics analysis of a single sentence. Children are playing in the park, right? From phonetics to pragmatics, phonetics, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics. Everything is here in one sentence. Okay, so that's why uh, these together, gives the levels gives us they give us a complete what linguistics analysis of a single sentence. So this is the kind of thinking that linguist trains you to do. Okay, so this is all about unit one, nature and scope of linguistics. Now we shall move to the next slide. That is theoretical linguistics. So this will introduce us to two major divisions of linguistics. That is theoretical linguistics and applied linguistics. Okay. So now theoretical linguistics is the what? Branch of what? Linguistics that studies the structure and internal system of language. So uh, remember this lecture will be a bit long because this is the first lecture of your, because I have to begin with the course structure, all this thing. That's why it may take a bit longer time. Okay. So please pay attention. Stay with me, okay? So theoretical linguistics is the what branch of linguistics that studies the structure, the internal system of language. The word theoretical should not frighten you. Okay, so it simply means that this branch is focused on uh, building theories, models, frameworks that help us understand language in general, not just one specific language. So theoretical linguistics aims to answer some of the most fundamental questions about language that human beings have ever asked. What is language? How does it differ from other systems of communication? What features are common to all languages in the world? These are language universal. So these features, I mean, that appears across all languages, regardless of geography or culture. Another key question is how do human beings produce and understand so quickly and effortlessly? When you hear a sentence, you understand it almost instantly, right? When I say something, are you doing good? Immediately you say, yes, sir. Something like that. So, how has that happened? That critical linguistics aims to answer. So, to answer these kinds of questions, critical linguistics are organized into several major areas of study. The first area is phonetics, which studies the physical production on perception of speech sound. The second is phonology, which studies how sounds are organized into systems within a language. The third is morphology, which studies the internal structure of words. How words are built from smaller meaningful units called morphemes. And the fourth is syntax, which studies how words combine to form sentences. That is grammar of sentences. The fifth is semantics, which studies meaning, what words, sentences mean in themselves. And the sixth is pragmatics. I have already said right about pragmatics, which studies meaning in context. How the same words can mean different, things depending on who says them, when and where, right? And so each of these areas examine language at a different structural level. Together, they form the foundation of all linguistic study. Right. As you progress, through this course, and into your, not only, in this course, and also in your academic career, you'll encounter these terms again and again, over and again, over. Okay. Uh, it is essential that you understand what each area's focuses on and how they relate to each other. Okay. So think of them as different lenses through um, which to examine the same object, that is language. All right. So this is all about theoretical linguistics. Now let's move on to the continuation of unit 2, that is uh, applied linguistics. So now, uh, in theoretical linguistics, asks what is language and how does it work? And applied linguistics, on the other hand, applied linguistics asks how can we use that knowledge to solve real problems? Okay, so applied linguistics focuses on what? The practical application of linguistics knowledge. It takes the theories and findings from theoretical linguistics and puts them to work in real world context. This is what makes applied linguistics especially relevant and exciting for those of us who are interested in especially in language teaching, so communications and also language related professions. Now let me walk you through the major areas as you can see here, where linguistics is active. So the most and obvious important one is the language teaching, right? Applied linguistics has deeply shaped the way English and other languages that are taught in schools, university around the world. Okay, so insights from phonetics, morphology, syntax, pragmatics are all used to develop better teaching methods, better textbooks, you know, more effective classroom strategies. If you don't do these basic things, how can you do it yourself, right? So another important area is translation and interpretations. So translating a text, from one language to another is not simply replacing words, right? How complicated, So how technical also? You need methods, right? So it involves understanding deep structural and cultural differences between the you know languages. Applied linguistics provide the tools for this. Applied linguistics also contribute to language policy and planning. Decision that governments and institutions make about which language will be used in education, government, and public life. Right? In a multilingual country like our India, this is a very significant issue. So speech therapy is another area where uh, applied linguistics plays a crucial role. When a person has difficulty producing speech sounds correctly, perhaps due to a disorder or injury or knowledge of phonetics and pronunciation helps therapists diagnose and treat the problem. Okay, that is like speech therapy. Another important areas include like decision making, also called lexicograph, dictionary, not decision, sorry. You can see here, dictionary making, that is also called lexicography and computational linguistics, which applies linguistic principles into the development of computer systems that can understand and generate human languages, right? So like the speech recognition on your smartphone computer. See, even now I'm using a smartphone, right? Sorry, computer to deliver speech, right? Deliver a lecture. See, it's all related to something to that. Okay. Now, uh, again, as you can see on this the right side, yeah, this I have provided another example, right? Using phonetics knowledge, what? Uh, Using phonetic knowledge, to help students improve their English pronunciation. So when a student, confuses the sound in sheep, like I'll give you like two words like sheep, right? Sheep and sheep. Even you're confused, right? One is SHIP, the other one is SHEEP, right? A student and a teacher who understands phonetics can explain exactly what the difference is and how to produce each sound correctly. Right? Sheep and sheep. Right? Two different words, but they sound alike. But there is slight differences. So if you have phonetics knowledge, you can also understand better about this. You will know better about this. What is the exact difference between these two words, sheep and sheep, right? So this is applied linguistics in action. The right inside the what it can be the classroom. So this connection between linguistics theory and teaching practices, you know, is our main focus in this course. Okay. Now let's move on to uh, levels of linguistics. So now we can see here. Uh, this is one of the most important and widely used frameworks in the entire field of linguistics. So you have to pay close attention to this levels of linguistics analysis. Okay. So the central idea here is this that language is not a single, right? It's not like a flat thing. It is a complex, like multi-layered system. Just as a building has a foundation, right? Building when you build a building, right? It has a foundation, walls, roofs, or a uh, roof, each with its own function, right? So language has different levels. So each of which operates according to its own rules and principles. So language studies uh, language uh, by examining it, at each of this, this level separately. Okay, and then understand how the levels interact with each other. Now let us go through this, six major, levels shown It is flat. So the fourth level is phonetics. I've already said phonetics is the study of speech sound, how they are physically produced, how they are produced by the organs of speech, like using tongue, lips, teeth, like vocal cords. Okay, so now and how they travel through air as sound waves, like transmission of sound, and how they are perceived listener. Okay, so that is all about phonetics. And phonetics does not concern itself with meaning. It is purely about sound as physical evidence. The second is phonology. Phonology is closely related to phonetics but focuses on the sound system of a specific language, not overall, not like phonetics. So how sounds are organized, how sounds of specific languages are organized, and also pattern and used to distinguish meanings, right? So, for example, in English, the sound p and b distinguish between words like pit and bit, right? Phonology studies these distinctions. One is p is voiceless, b is voiced sound, right? So, such things dealt by phonology. The third level is uh, what is it? Word formation. Morphology is the study of word formation, right? So, how words are built from smaller meaningful units called morphemes. For example, the word unhappiness is made up of three morphemes: unhappy and ness, right? So when you attach all these affixes, un and ness, it becomes what we get unhappiness, right? The base word is happy. When you attach uh, un to happy, you get unhappy, right? When you attach ness to unhappy, it becomes unhappiness. We get unhappiness, right? Just a generation of new words judged by morphology. Okay, so that's why morphology studies how these units, right? These morphemes, this combination of morphemes are combined to form new words. Okay, they are not just unit; they are meaningful units. So the fourth level is syntax. Syntax study how the study of syntax deals with the sentence structure, the rules that govern how words are arranged to form grammatical sentences. For example, in English, we say the dog hit the man. Sorry, the dog hit the man, not the dog, the man with me. It doesn't make sense, right? When I say the dog with the man, it makes sense. When the uh, dog and the man, the beat, no, doesn't make sense, right? So syntax explain why arrangement is acceptable and another is not, right? The proper arrangement of words is important in any sentence structure. So syntax looks into that. Look, okay, into that matter. So the fifth level is semantics. Semantics is the study of meaning. What words, phrases, sentences mean in themselves, independent of the context, right? And the sixth level is pragmatic. Pragmatic deals with meaning in use. That is, we can study pragmatic studies meaning in use in context. How context, intention, social, setting shape what language actually means in any given situation. So together, this uh, six levels of language analysis gives language a comprehensive toolkit kind of for language analysis at every dimension. Okay, so now let me give you further examples of linguistic analysis. Uh, Now, by giving you like some concrete example. Okay, so this is where the theory becomes real and tangible for you. Okay, the sentence we are going to analyze is the teacher explained the lesson carefully. So clearly, can you see this? You can see right? You can see the sentence right here. See, the teacher explained the lesson carefully. Sorry, clearly. There's an ordinary everyday sentence, right? The kind of sentence you might hear or read anything in a classroom. Yet, if we look at uh, if we look at it through the lens of linguistics, it reveals a remarkable amount of information at multiple levels. So let us go through each level one by one. At the level of knowledge, we would analyze the pronunciation of each word. In the sentence, we look at which sounds are used, how they are combined, and where the stress falls. For example, the words explain. The words what the words explain is stressed on the second syllable. Explain. Phonology helps us understand these patterns of sound, pattern of sound and stress. At the level of phonology, we examine the internal structure of the words. Like notice the word like see, teacher. It is formed from the base word teach plus the suffix teach and then teacher. This turns into this turn the verb into a noun, right? This is a verb. When you attach to a teach, it becomes a noun, right? A person who sorry, a person who teaches. Similarly, the word explain is formed from explain plus the past tense marker ad, right? Explain plus ad. When you add ad, it becomes explained, right? And the word clearly is formed from clear plus the adverb forming suffix ly, right? Clearly, something like that. So morphology reveals how words are built from meaningful parts. So that's at a level of syntax, we examine the grammatical structure of the entire sentence. The structure, the teacher is the subject of this sentence, right? Explain is the main verb. The lesson is the direct object, right? There's no direct object here, though. The, the, that things that was explained, in syntax. So and clearly is an adverb that modifies the verb, right? The sentence follows the standard English word order, like subject, verb, object. Okay, so syntax shows how these pieces fit together grammatically. All right, and at the level of the semantics, what does this sentence means? We ask, what does this sentence mean? It tells us that a specific action, like explaining, was performed by a specific person who teacher on a specific thing, that is lesson, or in a specific manner. Yes, clearly. This is the propositional, content of the sentence. It's literal meaning. And at the level of pragmatics, we ask, what does this sentence mean in a particular context? If a student say, this is a friend after, sorry, uh, if a student say this to a friend after the class, like even in your case also, like Bobita is saying to Kesa about this sentence, the teacher explained the lesson clearly, something like that. It might simply be sharing information, right? So, but if a school inspector writes this in a report, it carries a very different informative weight. Same words, different meaning in context. So this is what pragmatics explores. Today, this point, this point, not six actually, this you know, uh, five levels gives us a complete, layered understanding of a single sentence. And this is the power of what? Linguistics analysis. Okay, it was not six, okay, it is five. I said six when I said legacy analysis and levels. If you put, if you add phonetics, then it becomes six levels of linguistics levels. But here we discuss only five because here we don't need that for phonetics part. We only need phonology to pragmatics. Okay. Now let's move on to linguistics and language teaching. This is perhaps the most directly relevant to, for many of you, especially those of you who are interested in becoming, just like Keshav sir, we had there. He's also a teacher, right? English language teachers or who are already teaching, like you, right? So this series is about relation between linguistics and language teaching. So the central point of this unit is straightforward, but very important. Linguistics plays a crucial crucial and indispensable role in English language teaching, right? Or ELT. In short form, it is ELT, right? So without a solid understanding of how language works, a teacher is working in the dark. With that understanding, a teacher is empowered to make informed, effective, and purposeful, decisions in the classroom. So let us think about what knowledge of linguistics gives us a language teacher. Because it gives them an understanding of the structure of language, its sounds, words, its grammars, its meaning, right? This means that the teacher is not simply following a textbook blindly. They understand why certain rules exist and how to explain them clearly to students. But I don't know, right? So, second, knowledge of linguistics helps teachers understand the nature of grammar. Grammar is not an arbitrary set of rules that must be memorized. No? Grammar is the systematic organization of language. When teachers understand this, they can teach grammar in a way that makes sense to students rather than simply asking them to remember rules. Third, linguistics knowledge helps teachers understand patterns of pronunciation. They know how sounds are produced, which sounds are problematic or for teachers from particular language background. Okay, and how to help students improve. So this is another thing. So, for example, speakers of certain Indian languages may have difficulty with a specific English vowel distinction, and the teachers with phonetic knowledge can address this directly. So, fourth, uh, linguistics help teachers understand the meaning and the uses words mean in isolation, but how they are used in different contexts, what sorry, what connotation they carry, and how they collocate. That is, which words naturally appear together. Okay, so fifth, and perhaps the most important one. So linguistics help teachers understand the context of communication. Language does not exist in a vacuum. It is always used in social situations for specific purposes, right? By specific people. Understanding this helps teachers develop students' communicative competence. And this is the ability to use language appropriately and effectively in what real situations. So this enables teachers to design effective teaching strategies that go beyond simply correcting grammatical errors. Okay. So now, what is the importance for teachers? Linguistics and language teaching. Let's move into that. So now, uh, the first benefit I can say, I can say is that linguistics helps teachers identify common learning errors. When a student makes a mistake, there's always a reason for it, right? It might be interference from their first language, a misunderstanding of the grammatical rules, or confusion between similar sounding words. So a teacher with linguistics knowledge can analyze errors systematically and understand what is causing them, and then address the root cause, not just correct the surface mistake. Okay, so the second benefit is that linguistics helps teachers improve pronunciation teaching. Pronunciation is one of the most challenging areas for language learners, and also one of the most neglected in many classrooms. With knowledge of phonetics, the knowledge of the study of speech sound, a teacher can explain exactly how sounds are produced, right? Draw students' attention to the position of the tongue, lips, teeth, and guide them towards more accurate pronunciation. The third benefit is developing vocabulary teaching strategies. Knowing about morphology, the structure of words, helps teachers teach vocabulary more effectively instead of asking students to memorize long list of unrelated words. A teacher can help students understand words, families, prefixes, affixes, suffixes, all this thing, infixes, roots, and so on, right? This enables students to guess the meanings of unfamiliar words and expand their vocabulary much more rapidly. The fourth benefit is that linguistics helps teachers teach grammar more systematically rather than presenting grammar as a list of rules to be memorized. A teacher who understands syntax, the study of sentence structure, can help students see the uh, underlying logic of grammar. This leads to deeper understanding and more accurate language production. The fifth benefit is uh, improving students' communicative competence. This is overall goal of modern language teaching, not just grammatical accuracy, but ability to communicate appropriately and effectively in a variety of social context. Okay, so now here again I have provided one example. Uh, Consider the English words like I have already said also in the previous slides. Ship and ship, right? One is with short e, the other one is with long e, right? So these words differ by a single vowel, right? What did I just said? One is short vowel, e, short shape, right? And the other one is long vowel, it shape, right? Many learners confuse them. Why? Which can cause misunderstanding in communication, real communication because of this similarity. Yet there's a difference, right? In vowel, just a single vowel difference. Okay, you may also be confused, right, with this word. If I say ship and sheep, which one is ship? You'll be confused. Okay, so this thing can be helped by linguistics expert or who are trained in linguistics, a teacher who is trained in linguistics. So many learning conditions. Why? Because of this what misunderstanding in real communication. So a teacher who understands phonetics, there is a phonetics and phonology, these are the branches of linguistics, can explain this the difference precisely. The word like the vowel in shape is short and large, right? While the vowel in shape is long and tense. So they can demonstrate the correct power position, right? And give students practice distinguishing, and producing both sounds. This is exactly the kind of practical benefit that linguistics, knowledge brings to the classroom. Okay. So now the last unit, that is unit 5, branches of linguistics. So now we are, I think I have also introduced in the first semester regarding that. Here I'm trying to re-explain again. So now we have understood what linguistics is, how it relates to language teaching. Let us now look at the full landscape of the discipline, the different branches that linguists work in. Okay, so linguistics is not a single or monolithic subject. Okay, so it is a rich and diverse fields made up of many what specialized branches or subfields, each focusing on a particular aspect of language. So in this slide you can see there are I have so here accepting that pragmatic. Okay, I can also include pragmatic here. I have not included here. Here I can we can also include pragmatic, but I'll tell you one by one. Uh, the first four branches phonetics, right? That says speech sounds, and then we have phonology, uh, the study of the sound patterns and systems, and then we have word structure, study of words and there is morphology, and syntax. We have what uh, sentence structure, and then we have study semantics, study of meaning, and then another one we have pragmatics. Pragmatics also can be added here. Okay, let me just add it. Pragmatic. Okay, pragmatics. Okay, pragmatics. All right. What is this? Do you remember now? This is what? Study of language used in context. Study of what? Study of uh, language used in context. Okay. Let me just unbold it. Hmm. Okay, done. Hmm. So these are the sorry, what is one? These are the major branches of sorry. These are the major branches of what? Linguistics. Okay. Now let's move on to the next slide. That is these are the core branches. As I let me just let me tell you, this phonetics, phonology, morphology. These are the core branches of linguistics. Now we also have in linguistics we also have interdisciplinary branches. Right? What are they? Uh, Building on the core, branches we discussed. This slide introduces us to what another group of what linguistics branches. That is interdisciplinary branches. These are areas where linguistics connects with the draws from other academic disciplines, creating fields of inquiry that are rich, exciting, and practically important. So first we have uh, sociolinguistics. Sociolinguistics studies the relationship between language and society. It asks questions like such as how does language vary across different social groups? How does your choice of words, accent, dialect reflect your social identity? And why do people speak differently in a formal situation and versus an informal ones? Why are some languages give more status than other? And in a country as linguistically diverse as India, the social linguistics is essential, especially relevant and fascinating field of study. Okay, the second interdisciplinary branch is psycholinguistics. It studies relationship between language and the human mind. It investigates how human language is stored in the brain, how children acquire language so naturally and effortlessly. Okay, and how we process language at the speed of thought, and what happens when language ability is damaged by brain injury or neurological disorder. The field this field draws on both linguistics and cognitive psychology. And the third one is neurolinguistics. Neurolinguistics is closely related to psycholinguistics, but uh, focuses more specifically on biological structure of the brain that are responsible for language. Okay, through brain scanning, like technology, the studies of patients with language disorders, neurolinguists are mapping out which specific areas of the brain control different aspects of language, like speaking, listening, reading, and writing. The fourth interdisciplinary branch is computational linguistics. This is one of the fastest growing areas in modern linguistics, like driven by advances in artificial intelligence and computer technology. Right. So computational linguistics applies to linguistics a principle to the design of what computer systems, what system that can understand, that generate what and processes like human languages. See, now like AI, ChatGPT, all these things, Gemini, they can easily generate languages, right? Anything, whatever you ask, we can just generate it. But it is a part of computational linguistics, right? So every time you use your voice assistant, see, even now I'm using microphone, right? Voice assistant also, a search engine or automatic translation service, benefiting from the work of computational linguists. Okay, and another one is applied linguistics, interdisciplinary branch is applied linguistics, right? Which we have already discussed in what? Do you remember? This unit in the previous unit, right? In the previous unit, it was most probably in unit two, I think. Let me just let's just go through that. Go back take a look at. Uh, See here in unit two, I have already discussed, right? So as a reminder, still, applied linguistics focuses on what using what linguistics knowledge to address real world linguistic problems. Okay, and particularly in the area of language teaching and learning. So the key message of this slide is that language is not isolated from the rest of the human life. It is deeply connected with society, the mind, the brain, and technology. So linguistics, therefore, is not just an academic exercise. Uh, it is a living and growing discipline with connections to virtually every aspect of human experiences. Okay, with this I conclude the and I conclude actually with this we complete 5 minutes of ENM 62111. Now let's move on to the questions. So go through these questions, try to solve it, and see your how far you can solve it. So these are the three questions to be solved by you. Maybe you can show me. Okay, after solving these questions. So the first one is about definition. You have to define linguistics and then why you have to answer why it is considered as a study, a scientific study of language. And the second question is the differences between theoretical linguistics and applied linguistics. And the third question is the major levels of linguistics analysis. All right. So now let's move on to the conclusive part. So dear students, we come to the conclusion of our the very first lecture of second semester. Yeah, and also the first program, but ENM 6211, right? I'll just come back to that. Let us take a moment to look back at what we have covered or discussed today, and appreciate the journey we have made through these foundational concepts. Right. So in this lecture, we discuss six important areas. Right. That together form the foundation of block one. First one, definition and scope of linguistics, and second, linguistics as a scientific study of language, and third, theoretical and applied linguistics, and fourth, levels of linguistics analysis, and fifth, linguistics and language teaching, and sixth, major branches of linguistics. Right. So now, this concept that we have discussed today, we are not just content to be memorized for like examination. No, they provide intellectual foundation for everything we will study in the remaining blocks in the unit of this course. So carry these ideas with you as you move forward. Don't just leave it here. Okay, block one is over. Okay, I'm leaving here. Not like that. Please kindly carry these ideas concept. Okay. So now in our next lecture, we shall move to block two. That is theories of linguistics, where we will explore the basic theoretical frameworks that linguists have developed to explain the nature and structure of language. So please review today's lectures or notes, attempt to and also attempt, check your progress questions. And when you come to the next class, you may come with a question, come with your questions and curiosity. Don't just come blindly, simply attending, okay, chalega, no like that. Okay, come prepared. And I, okay, so with this we conclude, block today's lecture, and also we have completed with this we have completed block one, right? Block one of ENM 6211, fundamentals of linguistics and ELT. Okay, so now we have questions, doubts. Do you have any questions or doubts? No questions? Okay. If you do not have questions or doubts, all right. Until next time, then take care. Uh, Thank you so much for being, for attending the class, and see you in the next lecture. Thank you so much.